Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you so very much and the leadership of Energy and Commerce for holding this hearing today. This legislation now enjoys significant bipartisan support from both sides of the aisle, including 21 members of Energy and Commerce, and I commend the chairman for understanding the urgency of this matter. Imagine for a second if the weapons used in San Bernardino, Paris, or Brussels were not guns and bombs, but instead aerosolized smallpox, and this isn't far-fetched. In fact, I learned last week at a simulation at the McCain Institute in Washington that this easily weaponized, highly contagious disease could result in the death of upwards of 1 million people if dispersed in Madison Square Gardens alone. That number is not just for New York City, but in reality, these exposed individuals would have returned home, infecting every person with whom they came into contact along the way. And for a disease with a 30% kill rate, responsible for the deaths of 300 million people in the 20th century alone, the fallout would be global and catastrophic. So I've been working with my good friend from California, Congresswoman Eshoo, one of the original architects of Project BioShield, to develop a set of policy changes that could make a difference in the next outbreak or, God forbid, a terrorist attack. H.R. 3299 was developed in collaboration with leading experts in biodefense, academia, first responders, and the private sector. Among other things, this bill would reform contracting procedures at BARDA to ensure faster development of critical medical countermeasures and create a limited priority review voucher for diseases on DHS's material threat list. Returning this negotiating authority to BARDA will alleviate the bureaucratic red tape, make an immediate impact on the development of vaccines and treatments, and the new PRV program will spur development in an effective vaccine to stockpile against threats like Ebola, anthrax, or smallpox, which often take more than a decade and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So when you think about how we can improve our system, we could have possibly saved lives if we had an Ebola vaccine. Thousands of lives had it been deployed to West Africa. Or the Zika vaccine could have possibly already last spring have been in process and saved pregnant women in Brazil. The impact can be immeasurable if we make improvements and acknowledge that the system can be improved. And so these are common sense reforms, but they're not just coming from Congress. This Blue Ribbon Study Panel, the National Blueprint for Biodefense, listed 33 recommendations to improve our biodefense. It was authored by experts, some of whom have testified before our committee. It includes leaders such as former Senators Tom Daschle and Joe Lieberman, former Governor Ridge, Donna Shalala, the former HHS Secretary under President Clinton. Now, a similar version of our bill has been authored by Senators Burr and Casey, and it has already passed out of the Senate Help Committee by a wide bipartisan margin. Preparedness is not a partisan issue. It's never been, and it shouldn't be treated as such again. And so I assure my colleagues that any concerns we might have with this legislation can be addressed in a bipartisan manner, because it's our duty to really support and protect the American people. I think that's federal government's top priority and must be our first priority. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses, working with my colleagues to pass H.R. 3299. And at this point, I yield the remainder of my time to Dr.